Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Western Canon Challenge, where we are reading the entirety of the Western Literary Canon out loud. Today we continue the last part of Volume 9. We are in Journal Collection number 54, and this is part 2 of the reading of that. We are now on a section entitled West Point, and it begins with an editorial update. During May, Mr. Emerson was surprised by an invitation from the Secretary of War, Stanton, to serve on the Board of Visitors to the United States Military Academy at West Point. He was well content with this opportunity of seeing a class of scholars so new to him, and went thither in the first days of June. On his return, he showed great pleasure in all that he had seen, the recitations, the riding, the drill, and wonderful parade. He had talked with the cadets and was pleased with their manly bearing and honorable tone and tradition. The self-help and ascetic life appealed to him. Especially was he delighted with Meigs and Miki, close and loyal friends, although ranking highest in the class, and it was still a question who would graduate as first scholar. End note. West Point Academy makes a very agreeable impression on me. The innocence of the cadets, the air of probity, of veracity, and of loyalty to each other struck me, and the anecdotes told us confirmed this impression. I think it excellent that such tender youths should be made so manly and masterly in rough exercises of horse and gun and cannon and muster, so accurate in French, in mathematics, geology, and engineering, should learn to draw, to dance, and to swim. I think their ambition should be concentrated on their superiority in science, being taught that whoever knows the most must command of right, and must command in fact, if just to himself. Let them have no fears, then, of prejudice against West Point. West Point, a hotbed of aristocracy, is a word of some political hack, which seems to rankle in their memories. Rather let them accept it, and make West Point a true aristocracy, or the power of the best. Best scholars, best soldiers, best engineers, best commanders, best men, and they will be indispensable to their government and their country. Will be, as they ought, the nucleus of the army, though it be 3/4 or 9/10 volunteers. They will by the shop of power, the source of instruction, the organization of victory. Watt said he sold power in his shop. Ah, that is what all men wish to buy, if they can only have the pure article, something finer, I think, than Watt meant or had, or if he had it, he forgot to tell us the number of the shop. In regard to the points to which the attention of the board was called, the administration appeared to me judicious and more mild, in fact, than the printed rules led us to look for. Thus, on inquiry for the dark prison, we found there was none, the room once used for this having been for some years appropriated to other uses. One fact appeared plainly, that this academy was free of the bête noire of colleges, namely criminal justice. Here they are once and forever freed from every question by means of martial law. Every cadet is instantly responsible to his superior officer for his behavior, and is sent to the guardhouse, or has 1 or 2 hours patrol duty added to his day's work, or is put down a long row of steps on his ladder of merit, if the offense is graver, is discharged from the academy. I think that the point of competitive examinations should be urged on the Congress, and that a severer preliminary test should be required for admission. The academy should be relieved of teaching to spell and parse English. Thus the course of study might be less superficial, or the application of science might be carried into detail in other schools. The discipline is yet so strict that these military monks in years never pass the limits of the post, and know nothing of the country immediately around them. It is pleasant to see the excellence and beauty of their fences, which cost nothing and need no repairs, namely the Hudson River on 1 or 2 sides, and the mountains on the other sides. There is nothing beyond the post, no village, no shops, no bad company. It is 2 miles to Cosen's new hotel, but over a desert road, and there any cadet would be under dangerous observation. Editor's note. Mr. Emerson was pleased with the insistence on good hours and the careful keeping of the cadets within bounds, protecting their innocence during the years when college boys in their first absence from home or school surveillance are subjected to temptation and ill example. End note. West Point notes. Life is in short cycles or periods, rapid rallies as by a good night's sleep. The sublime point is the value of a sufficient man. Cube this value by the meeting of two or more who perfectly understand and support each other, you have then organized victory. Wherever one is tried, two are on trial. The examiner is instructed whenever the pupil is examined. Is civilization built on powder? Built on buttons? Remember there is a difference between a soldier and his cannon. Increasing leaning to pure science of the schools. The humanity of kings is justice. General Scott's maxims such as resentment is a poor basis for a campaign. Bonaparte called the École Polytechnique the hen that laid him golden eggs. Your ways inspire lively curiosity. I thought 2 days sufficient. I could willingly spend 20 and know the power and hope and career of each youth. Books for West Point. Life of Hodson, Life of Lord Herbert of Cherbury, Tom Brown at Rugby, Tom Brown at Oxford. Correspondence between Napoleon and Joseph Bonaparte. Lives of the French Savants by Arago, George Herbert's poems, Life of Major General Sir William Napier. At West Point I entered some of the chambers of the cadets in the barracks, and found 2 cadets in each standing as if on guard. Each chamber was perfectly clean, and every article orderly disposed. The mattress on the camp iron bed was rolled up into a scroll. Who makes your bed? I do. Who brings your water? I do. In the battery drill I saw each handsome, dainty boy whom I had noticed in the examination, flying over the field on the caissons, or loading or working the gun, all begrimed with powder. In the mortar practice, in the siege battery drill, each was promptly performing his part in the perfect exercise. At West Point I saw a civilization built on powder. It is not quite creditable to our invention that all the instruction in engineering, infantry, cavalry, artillery, rigidly rests on this one accident of our chemistry, gunpowder. A new invention tomorrow would change all the art of war. Just as our commerce and civilization are so built on cotton as to have deceived the southern states and many other states into neglect of all other possibility and of morality. But cotton is only one of 200,000 plants known to our botany, and powder is but one of a million combinations that are to be tried in turn. June. Sam Ward thought the new generation better than the last. We have had peace and its disablings. You will have the excitement and training of war. The mischief is such that I hear sometimes the sentiment expressed that to remove this mountain of calamity from our institutions were worth the expenditure of an entire generation. Who is he who will not be one? I believe if men saw surely this issue in the sacrifice that many are ready to be offered, it sweetens the cup of grief of mothers that the loss of their youthful hero has served to close up the crater of death in the forum. We do not often have a moment of grandeur in these hurried, slipshod, aimless lives. I find in Life of Lord Herbert a romantic state of society in which courage and the readiness for extreme events give a wonderful superiority over any experience of our own. I wish society to play kings, to be kings. We are not, and these men are. Take egotism out, and you would castrate the benefactors. Luther, Mirabeau, Napoleon, John Adams, Andrew Jackson, and our nearer eminent public servants, Greeley, Theodore Parker, Ward Beecher, Horace Mann, Garrison, would lose their vigor. In heaven, said Swedenborg, no attention is paid to person, nor the things of person, but to the things abstracted from person. See Henry James, Substance and Shadow. Nature's education. Nature wishes to grow and to grow unobserved, so she allures the child out of doors and puts a hoop and a ball in his hands. Then he forgets himself and rushes into the conditions of growth, and comes into his supper hungry and off, then to solid sleep, and grows every minute of the day and night like a cornfield. Whenever we have true philosophy, it will surely be spoken in right tone. If Kant and Sir William Hamilton are too arid, Henry James is quite too petulant and scolding. Socrates is humane, and his irony only covers a profound delight in piety. Swedenborg deserves James's praise of sincere dealing, but this witty and elegant Billingsgate, which diverts James so hugely, ought to warn the reader, whom first it scares, that it is not quite to be trusted, that there must be some deduction from pure truth to generate all this wrath. June 24th. Agassiz declares that he is going to demand of the community that provision should be made for the study of natural science on the same scale as that for the support of religion. Agassiz says at Heidelberg, Tiedemann was his teacher of anatomy, of whom he learned dissection. Afterwards, at Munich, Dollinger was his teacher, and one day he asked Dollinger why he was not enlarged by so much as Tiedemann had taught him, whilst he was sensible of his progress since he had been with him. Dollinger answered, Tiedemann is a prosector. I am a professor. At Arcueil, near Paris, Laplace, Cuvier, Decandolle, Gay, Lussac, Biot, Humboldt, Berthollet met once every week to prepare business for the Institute, and there are 4 volumes published of memories or transactions at Arcueil, which are the essence of all that was done in that time. You must not go to the sermons in the churches for the true theology, but talk with artists, naturalists, and other thoughtful men who are interested in verities, and note how the idea of God lies in their minds, not the less how the sentiment of duty and impulse of virtue lies in the heart of the bobbing woman, of any unspoiled daughter or matron in the farmhouse. These are the crucial experiments, these the wells where the coy truth lies hid. In reading Henry Thoreau's journal, I am very sensible of the vigor of his constitution, that oaken strength which I noted whenever he walked, or worked, or surveyed woodlots, the same unhesitating hand with which a field laborer accosts a piece of work, which I should shun as a waste of strength, Henry shows in his literary task. He has muscle, and ventures on and performs feats which I am forced to decline. In reading him, I find the same thought, the same spirit that is in me, but he takes a step beyond and illustrates by excellent images that which I should have conveyed in a sleepy generality. 'Tis as if I went into a gymnasium and saw youths leap, climb, and swing with a force unapproachable, though their feats are only continuations of my initial grapplings and jumps. June 29th. My feeling about Henry James's book is that he is a certain Saul among the prophets. The logical basis of his book, a certain pure and absolute theism. There is but one actor in the universe. There is no self but devil. All must be surrendered to ecstasy of the present deity. But the tone in which all this is taught is in perpetual contemptuousness, chiding, and satire. The Arabs measure distance by horizons, and scholars must. July 16th. Rode this afternoon with Channing in the wagon to White Pond. 'Tis perhaps 10 years ago since I was there with him before, and in the reflections of the larger grown trees in the lake noticed the same peculiarities. The trees were all done in minute squares, as in the crochet work of girls. The colors of the foliage, russet and ruddy, added to the beauty. Pines on the distant shore, of which we saw only the short stem veiled by the branches, and the water showed the stem of the tree to the top. We were on the farther side of the pond at the cove, and talked with the party, a young man and 3 young women from Sudbury, 9 miles and a half distant. They left the shore in a boat. Channing and I agreed that a picnic is like a revival. It changes a man in an instant, and he forgets his home and habits and thinks he will come and live with nature. But he returns to his village to put up his horse, stops at the post office, takes tea with his family, and does not for 10 years get a glance at the paradise again. After a bath in the pond, came home by the beautiful road through 9 Acre Corner, where the farms were in richest array. An old hemlock tree in one field should teach everybody to plant and guard a hemlock, that it may some day be old. Doctrine of Leasts. I should write on the power of minorities. Every book is written with a constant secret reference to the few intelligent persons. See in politics the importance of minorities of one, silent minorities of one also. Thoreau, Very, Newcomb, Alcott. Christianity existed in one child. Ellery Channing always speaks of the landscape as of a painting. When Le Nôtre had completed the garden of the Tuileries, Colbert wished to close them on the public. Charles Perrault resisted the interdiction and obtained that his promenade should remain open to the citizens of Paris and to children. And then there is a French quotation which is not translated. Editor's note. At the invitation of the literary societies of Dartmouth College, Mr. Emerson went to Hanover, New Hampshire, and on July 22nd gave the address, a part of which is printed under the title The Man of Letters, in Lectures and Biographical Sketches. End note. July 24th. I went to Dartmouth College and found the same old granny system which I met there 25 years ago. The president has an aversion to emulation, as injurious to the character of the pupils. He therefore forbids the election of members into the two literary societies by merit, but arranges that the first scholar alphabetically on the list shall be assigned to the Adelphi, and the second to the Mathesians, and the third to the Adelphi, and the fourth to the Mathesians, and so on. Every student belonging to the one or the other. Well, but there is a first scholar in the class, is there not? And he has the first oration at commencement. Oh no, the parts are assigned by lot. The amiable student who explained it added that it tended to remove disagreeable excitement from the societies. I answered, certainly, and it would remove more if there were no college at all. I recommended morphine in liberal doses at the college commons. The accusation of being a heretic, hitherto in every country formidable, is not so here today. Catherine the Great, after talking with Diderot and Grimm, said on rising to go to a council of state, and then there's a French quotation that's untranslated, the more ambitious a state is, the more vulnerable. England, France have ships, towns, colonies, treasure, and can very ill afford to give every Yankee skipper a chance to hack at these. A mob has nothing to lose and can afford to steal, but England and France not. All degrees in the Republic of Letters, as in every other state, men of useful and popular talent for daily use, whose efficiency is exactly limited and not embarrassed by ideal expansions. They can, as lawyers and statesmen, furnish you with just the amount of information or explanation this quarter of an hour requires, just as a market-man measures out to you a peck or a half of a half-peck of peas. And there are those who cannot do this, but are not less wanted, are much more wanted, who know the foundations of law and politics, and are to the lawyer as the botanist is to the market-man. Mediocre people wish to utilize you, to make of Newton a bank clerk, and in all ways act to pull you down from a high career. Our people have false delight in talent and a showy speech. A lawyer who can carry his point in Webster, Choate, Butler, Banks, and Macaulay, and in innumerable Gowes and Dunlaps, with considering their soundness or truth. But the measure in art and in intellect is one. To what end? Is it yours to do? Are you bound by character and conviction to that part you take? The very definition of art is the inspiration of a just design working through all the details. But the forsaking the design to produce effect by showy details is the ruin of any work. Then begins shallowness of effect, intellectual bankruptcy of the artist. All goes wrong. Artist and public corrupt each other. Now the public are always children. The majority are young and ignorant, unable to distinguish tinsel from gold, ornament from beauty. But the scholar must keep faith with himself. His sheet anchor is sincerity, and when he loses this, he loses really the talent of his talent. Hawthorne, unlucky in having for a friend a man who cannot be befriended, whose miserable administration admits but of one excuse, imbecility. Pierce was either the worst or he was the weakest of all our presidents. Editor's note. On August 11th, Mr. Emerson had repeated the address on the Man of Letters at Waterville College in Maine. End note. August 25th. In the war, the American government stands for the ideal or semi-ideal side. The regiment, it is the colonel and the captains. Is Wordsworth a bell with a wooden tongue? Carlyle has sacrificed to force of statement. One would say none has ever equaled his executive power in the use of English. He makes an irresistible statement which stands and which everybody remembers and repeats. It is like the new parrot guns and powder. But here today are latest experiments and a success which exceeds all previous performance in throwing far and in crushing effect. Much is sacrificed to this, but this is done. So with Carlyle's projectile style. Sennett quotes from Calhoun the phrase, "the fatal exercise of domineering talk." I can almost pardon scorn in a person who walks well. Then there is a French quotation after this, and it says, "See also a just censure of the like spirit on Taine's proposed formula of each mind as of Livy." And then there's another quotation in French untranslated. October 7th. When he passed the woods on the way to the city, how they reproached him. Scholar joined every club and society, accepted every invitation to soirees, but when the hour came, declined one and the other in favor of the book or meditation at the moment occupying him, and which derived a new zest from the offered invitation. And at last it appeared that this caprice was calculated. Happy expression of Daniel Webster, that Long Island Sound ought to be lighted up like a ballroom. Laws of society, a forever engaging topic. At Sir William Molesworth's house, I asked Milnes to get me safely out. He behaved very well. An impassive temperament is a great fortune. Then there's a French sentence untranslated. Even dancing and music, if I had that. F.B. the lawyer told me that a couple of glasses of wine might be taken with advantage when he was to address a jury, and the evening society is no doubt easilier faced with the preceding dinner. Young men think that the manly character requires that they should go to California or India or to war. Aplomb. State your opinion affirmatively and without apology. Why need you, who are not a gossip, talk as a gossip, and tell eagerly what the journals or Mr. Sumner or Mr. Stanton say? The attitude is the main thing. John Bradshaw was all his life a consul sitting in judgment on kings. Carlyle has, best of all men in England, kept the manly attitude in his time. His errors of opinion are as nothing in comparison with this merit in my opinion. And if I look for a counterpart in my neighborhood, Thoreau and Alcott are the best, and in majesty Alcott exceeds. This aplomb cannot be mimicked. It is the speaking to the heart of the thing, and a person of a feeble spirit, if intellectual, is instantly reinforced by being put into intellectual company, and to the surprise of everybody becomes a lawgiver. Another text of aplomb, besides that cited above, is the Senate of Egyptian kings sitting silent in the hall of the dead, from age to age, and when a new king arrives among them, they rise whilst he takes his seat. School-keeping is a dreary task, only relieved by the pleasure the teacher takes in 2 or 3 bright and beautiful pupils. The majority of children will be a brutal, or, to use a milder word, infidels, and the consoler is the appearance of genius and noble nature in one or another. Confucius says, "Now all over the empire carriages have wheels of the same size, all writing is with the same characters, and for conduct there are the same rules." Doctrine of the Mean. Confucius, from Lege. Of their seeing and hearing, their thinking and revolving, their moving and acting, men all say, "It is from me." Every one thus brings out his self, and his smallness becomes known. But let the body be taken away, and all would be heaven. How can the body be taken away? Simply by subduing and removing that self-having of the ego. This is the taking it away. That being done so wide and great as heaven is in my mind, as wide and great, and production and transformation cannot be separated from me. Hence it is said, "How vast is his heaven." Note Volume 1, page 294. The text is, "Call him man in his ideal, how earnest is he? Call him an abyss, how deep is he? Call him heaven, how vast is he?" I am reading a better Pascal. It is said in the book of poetry, "Over her embroidered robe she puts a plain single garment." So it is the way of the superior man to prefer the concealment of his virtue, while it daily becomes more illustrious, and the way of the mean man to seek notoriety, while he daily goes more and more to ruin. It is characteristic of the superior man, appearing insipid, yet never to produce satiety, while showing a simple negligence, yet to have his accomplishments recognized, while seemingly plain, yet to be discriminating. He knows how what is distant lies and what is near, whence the wind proceeds from, how what is minute becomes manifested. Volume 1, page 295. In hewing an axe handle, the pattern is not far off. We grasp one axe handle to hew another. Is virtue a thing remote? I wish to be virtuous, and lo, virtue is at hand. If one's actions be previously determined, there will be no sorrow in connection with them. If principles of conduct be, the practice of them will be inexhaustible. It is characteristic of entire sincerity to be able to foreknow. The individual possessed of complete sincerity is like a spirit. The way of heaven and earth may be declared in a sentence. They are without any doubleness, and so they produce things in a manner that is unfathomable. Heaven is a shining spot, yet sun, moon, stars, constellations are suspended in it. The earth is a handful of soil, but sustains mountains like Hua and Yo without feeling their weight, and contains rivers and seas without leaking away. To the colleges. Learning without thought is labor lost. Thought without learning is perilous. The accomplished scholar is not a utensil. Here is an acute observation that belongs to classes of men. The master said, "The faults of men are characteristic of the class to which they belong. By observing a man's faults, it may be known that he is virtuous." The superior man thinks of virtue, the small man thinks of comfort. Culture. It is from music that the finish is received. Confucius. The subjects on which the master did not talk were extraordinary things, feats of strength, disorder, and spiritual beings. Lega, page 65. He anticipated the speech of Socrates and the do as be done by of Jesus. 'Tis strange that it is not in vogue to commit harikari as the Japanese do at 60. Nature is so insulting in her hints and notices, does not pull you by the sleeve, but pulls you out your teeth. It tears off your hair in patches, steals your eyesight, twists your face into an ugly mask, in short, puts all contumelies upon you without in the least abating your zeal to make a good appearance. And all this at the same time that she is molding the new figures around you into wonderful beauty, which of course is only making your plight worse. A day is a magnificent work, but a day is one thing to Shakespeare and another to John A. Combe. You can take better care of your secret than another can. Three things are known only in three places: valor, which knows itself only in war; wisdom only in anger; and friendship only in need. Persian sayings. Franklin said, "Travel lengthens life." What Arabian Rochefoucauld said, "The reasons why grandfathers love their grandchildren so much is because they are the enemies of their enemies, inasmuch as they wish the death of those who wish theirs." And there's an untranslated French sentence. Who cultivates one garden at a time will eat birds. Who cultivates many gardens at once, the birds will eat up him. Well, our farmers cultivate many gardens, and they're too many acres. Use wine ill, you will become a wretch. Use it well, you will become an illustrious man. Then follows another French quotation, untranslated. Sensibility. The miller is an idle man, and makes the brook or the wind do his work. The poet is an idler man, hates the trouble of consecutive thinking, but observing that these tempestuous passions of his search all his knowledge, all his thought, all his sentiment in their fury, he fastens pens on these, and they write songs, prophecies, tragedies, and lampoons that last till the morning of the resurrection. The daily problem is how to get force, borrowed the hint of the self-registering thermometer. I love a book as Montaigne, Bale, or Heine did, not quite as Sam Bradford does. People do not read much. The beautiful sentence on the 102nd page of the printed volume, I know that the 100 pages will protect it, as well as if it were locked in my safe. He tears into a book for a sentence as a woodpecker grubs into a tree for a worm. The youth longs for a friend. When he forms a friendship, he fills up the unknown parts of his friend's character with all virtues of man. The lover idealizes the maid in the like manner. The virtues and graces which they thus attribute, but fail to find in their chosen companions, belong to man and woman, and are therefore legitimately required, but are only really ripened here one and there the other, distributed in scattered individuals in a wide population. But this illusion is constant, a siren song in the ears of every susceptible youth. Sadi says in his Cassade, quote, "Let no land, no friend be to thy mind an end, for sea and land are wide, and there are many men. Not one rose blooms, not one green tree. The trees are all green, full of roses is space. Art thou confined to one door as the hen to one corn grain? Why not soar up to the heaven like the doves, fly from tree to tree like the bulbul, and run not like the foolish grouse into a net?" Von Hammer, page 208. See also in Von Hammer, page 210, the excellent Kesed in old age, which follows this. Arabian hospitality. "Bring in the guest," said Hatem Tai. "I never eat alone." Hatem Tai, who roasted his wonderful horse to entertain the messengers of the Sultan, who had come to ask for the horse in the name of the Sultan. Bias. Tremendous force of the spring which we call native bias of character. It needs this and that incessant nudge of necessity or of passion to drive us from idleness and bring the day about. But what prodigious force must that spring have, whose impulsion reaches through all the days, through all the years, and keeps the old man constant to the same pursuits as in youth? 'Tis like the diurnal, annual, and centennial variations of the magnet. For Alcott, I have always the feeling that the visitor will not rightly see him, for he is like a piece of Labrador spar, which is a dull stone enough until you chance to turn it to the particular angle where its colors appear, and it becomes a jewel. Good out of evil. One must thank the genius of Brigham Young for the creation of Salt Lake City. an inestimable hospitality to the overland immigrants, and an efficient example to all men in the vast desert, teaching how to subdue and turn it into a habitable garden. And one must thank Walt Whitman for service to American literature in the Appalachian enlargement of his outline and treatment. Attitude. Nature, the best posture master. So also will the thought control the sentence and the style, strive against it as you may. The subject, I must so often say, is indifferent. Any word, every word in the language, every circumstance becomes poetic when in the hands of a higher thought. 'Tis a problem that genius can very well solve, to illuminate every low or trite word you can offer it. Give your rubbish to Shakespeare, and he will give it all back to you in gold and stars. The war. On the whole, I know that the cosmic results will be the same, whatever the daily events may be. The Union may win or lose battles, win or lose in the first treaties and settlements. Sutlers and peddlers may thrive on some abuse, but Northwest trade and Northeastern production and Pennsylvanian coal mines and New York shipping and white labor, though not idealists, gravitate in the ideal direction. Nothing less large than justice to them all can keep them in good temper, because in matters of such compass as the interest of a nation, every partial action hurts and offends some party. The difficulty with the young men is not their opinion and its consequences, not that they are copperheads, but that they lack idealism. A man for success must not be pure idealist, then he will practically fail, but he must have ideas, he must obey ideas, or he is a brute. A man does not want to be dazzled with a blaze of sunlight, he will be sunblind, but every man must have glimmer enough to keep him from knocking his head against the walls and posts. And it is in the interests of civilization and good society and friendship that I hate to hear of well-born and gifted and amiable men that they have this low tendency, this despair. Their death is no loss for their country, skeptical as felons. October 23rd. October 23rd. Anecdote for Epsilon would be Sam Dexter's deference of Selfridge, and also Daniel Webster's speech at Salem. If this be law, let the foundations of this house be turned up with the plow. The reward which his Puritan conscience brought to Samuel Hoare to indemnify him for all it had cost him was that his appearance in court for any party in a suit at once conciliated court, jury, and bystanders to that side which the incorruptible man defended. Power of money. That it will buy the miraculous flowering of the night-blooming cereus, or the Victoria Regia, in your parlor to add the splendor of secret nature to the lustres of your soiree. And if your cause be really honest, that you can buy with money the immense weight of Mr. Hoare's 70 years of virtue to shine on your claim, and dazzle the jury to your benefit. I justified to W. yesterday Confucius's speech about making money, lest he should rashly resign his position at Chicago, and cited David Hume's autobiography in confirmation. I might have cited Dr. Johnson's story of the man who wanted to go somewhere in Egypt. It was unsafe, so he hired a troop of dragoons. There is always something which the stingiest wishes to buy. A man who never gives will give an acre of land for a seat in a window where he can see a certain president or general or Walter Scott go by once to make the poor devil a happy poet for one moment. Attitude. Yes, that is all. That is what the orator brings, or he may leave his oration at home. How to make a poor, despised, seedy-looking cause and thin, seedy-looking assembly, each person in which assembly seems to come in half ashamed of the company, and only to stay through an odious sense of duty. How to make these warm, bright, firm, honorable, proud, populous, jubilant, and, in short, the only great cause and assembly in the world, that is in each case the orator's problem. We can let the year go round, if we know that the October brings thoughts, and March lustres, and May love, and the 10th year honor for the insults and ribaldry of the 9 foregoing winters. Then there's some untranslated quotation in French. Peculiar children. Mrs. M said, "No, couldn't stay from home a single night, for Benji was so constituted that he could not be left alone." Her sister added the testimony that he would tell this and that lie barefacedly, with perfect unconsciousness. Had I the world for my enemy, yet kept the treasures of a true friend, never should I ask whether things were or were not in this world. A ship on the high seas doth the state of a lover resemble. Overboard cast the cargo, if so they can save their lives. Sadi, from von Hammer Purgstall. Sadi's poem on old age. Now is the time when weakness comes and strength goes. The magic of sweet words I lose. The harvest wind cuts clean the tender sheen and shade, and pink and purple light upon thy garland fade. To my foot fails the power of manly stride in streets. Happy he who soonest to his orchard hut retreats. Sadi's whole power lies in the sweet word. Keep this, all the rest may go to beast and bird. Sadi. Love's smart is more worth than the body's well-being. Sadi. No soul has he who no friend has. Little joy has he who no garden has. Who with a moon face can refresh his heart, enjoys a luck which has no bounds. A dungeon is that house which solitude fills, if they have not, like Sadi, a rose bed. Thus much weight of food will carry thee. If thou take more, thou must carry it, says Sadi's physician. Then there's an untranslated French quotation. It was an excellent custom of the Quakers, if only for a school of manners, the silent prayer before meals. The poet or thinker must always be in a rude nation, the chief authority on religion. All questions on its truth and obligation will surely come home to him for their answer. As he thinks and speaks, will the intelligent men believe. A certain deference must therefore be shown to him by the priests. This is the end of Part 2 of Emerson's journal collection number 54, dating from the year 1863, when the author was 60 years old. Thank you for listening.